Right, so day 4, this is more of an events day. So you're going to be doing yoke, farmers, you know, those sort of kind of strongman events. And in the same way as we've approached the last 3 days, the first 5 minutes of this session, I'd encourage you to do some walking lunges, some squats, maybe the goblet squat that we used to do, where you're holding a weight in front of you or a kettlebell in front of you, and you're actually using that to open up the hips. So you're going to try and do 5 minutes of pulse raising to get your heart rate up, to get your blood circulating around your system, which means that you'll get more out of the mobility exercises, and B, you'll be more prepared when you move into actual your events to give it maximum sort of effort. Right, so we're back to our weighted ankle mobilisation. Now, just like you're doing, I'm finding with my own training, there's certain things that I find are more effective and certain things that are less effective. Now, I think if you're a strength athlete, someone that lifts weights, your body naturally tightens and adapts to those weights that you're lifting, which is what helps to produce strength and power. And as a result, you know, a lot of the stuff that we'll do maybe with the bands, it's just not enough. It just doesn't give you enough of a stretch. So we're going to revisit some of the stuff that we did on our, I think it was the log press day, and we're going to introduce those things again. Same caveat as before, if you find there's other movements we've done in some of the previous blocks of training that you prefer, feel free to swap this one out. As long as it's ankle specific, feel free to swap this one out and introduce that one instead. And if you have a body part that you're struggling with, you know, you've got an area that is just, no matter how much you warm it up, it still feels stiff, try and implement some daily mobility for that particular body part. So you'll find that with that chronicity and that frequency of training or of mobilising that region, you'll get better results than just doing it pre-training. So 20 kilo plate on your knee, toes and knees forwards, and then we rock forwards into that position. Now I've done my right leg every time I've done this, so my right leg feels loose as a goose, if that's even a loose thing, and I need to swap over and do my left leg at some point. So like we did before, 30 seconds, first few reps you're going to be tight, then it should ease off, and then you'll be able to push slightly further forwards into the stretch. The weight adds a little bit of pressure, it increases the effectiveness of the stretch, but you don't need much more than 20 kilos. You certainly don't need to be putting, you know, 2 or 3 plates onto your knee at any one time. Now, another thing you could do, if you've got a super friend, so you're training with somebody, is get them to come behind you and actually put some pressure onto your back. So as you're rocking forwards, they're pushing you slowly further forwards into the stretch. That might be another way that you could increase the effectiveness of this particular movement. So it's a gentle increase in pressure. You're not just suddenly shoving them forwards, and that will help to increase the dorsiflexion at the ankle, the opening of the hips, because this is a multi-joint exercise. You know, it's warming your knees up as well as mobilising your ankles, and it's also warming up the hips, both on the front leg and your back leg, which is where you'll feel a stretch through the hip flexor. So that's piece number 1, that's your weighted ankle mobilisation. Right, piece number 2, this is our hip opener. Now again, we've done this a number of times before, but personally I think this is one of the nicest ways to open up your hips, and it also looks a bit like a squat or a deadlift, like starting position. So I think the closer we can make your mobility movements to replicate the actual movements you're going into, I think the better. So if you're struggling to get into position on your squat, you're struggling to get position on your deadlift, and you're having to seesaw the bar up from the bottom, then this is one that, again, that you might want to spend a bit more time on outside of your training sessions to increase the flexibility and the mobility of the hips. Now, I've got a super friend here. So my super friend, which is something that you can employ, is going to use some pressure onto my lower back to push me further down into this position, into the stretch position. Now again, it's not a case of, you know, pushing them to the point where you start to feel things tearing and pain. Every time you do this, you'll naturally start to increase your range of movements. So it's working with some pressure. So make sure when you're doing the partner assisted stuff, there's some dialogue and some communication going on with you. If there's too much pressure, tell them to back off. If there's not enough pressure, ask them to increase the pressure. So it's important that you're talking through this. So I'm going to get into position. Dan's going to come round behind me. She's going to pop her hands onto the lower part of my back, and then as I rock backwards, she's going to apply more of a stretch into the floor. When I come back up, she takes the pressure off, and then back down from there. Now, have you got room to kneel there, Dan?
Maybe, kind of.
Cross your arms in front of you.
Yeah.
And put your arms, crossed arms on my back, and push down using your body weight. That's better. So you've got two alternatives there. If it's not enough of a stretch, using the hands and they're having to work too hard, get to cross their arms and use that for that pressure. Now hold in the bottom position just for a few seconds, just to really eke out those last few degrees of range of movement. So that's a partner assisted hip opener, and that is piece number 2. Right, piece number 3, this is a lower back opener. So you've got 2 big muscles either side of your spine. These are called quadratus lumborum, and these go between the bottom of your 12th rib and the top of your pelvis. Big square muscle, hence the name quad, 4-sided. Grabbing a lacrosse ball or something, a hard dog ball, you know, something that's there's not much giving. Tennis balls are too light. By the time you've laid over a tennis ball, it's pretty much squashed to the point where it's not doing much at all. We're going to place this underneath our backs, so into the side of your spine rather than onto the actual spine itself, and we're going to roll back onto the ball. Now initially all you're going to do is you're going to move yourself around until you feel the point where you think, yeah, that's the bit. You'll know it because as soon as you hit it, you'll be like, yeah, that's the bit. Now taking one knee, this is the same knee as the ball is on the side of your back, straighten out the other leg. That initially increases the stretch, so you just camp out there for a few seconds whilst you release, and then from there we're going to start to bring the knee up into the chest. Now, as I say, mobility work shouldn't be painful. It can be uncomfortable, but there shouldn't be any pain there. So if this causes you pain, stop and try one of the other movements. If you're struggling with back problems, you know, these are some of the things that you might get yourself booked in to come and see me for. So we do an online service. If you're not local to like the Bradford Batley area, you can see me online, and this is your lower back opener. Now once you've spent a few seconds there, feet back onto the floor, roll around again, and you'll find another little hot spot. So mine was just immediately above where I was before. Straighten out the leg, bring your knee into your chest, and again repeat the same process. So you might be in this position for 60 seconds, and that's fine because we're not holding stretches, we're basically using this as a mobility exercise. Now this is also a good one if you find that as you're going through your session, your back starts to tighten up, and that might be because, you know, it's a lot of lower back loading when you're doing your deadlifts, or it's a lot of lower back loading when you're doing your squats, and the poundages are going up now in block 5. You can use this in between sets. So if you find that you're feeling your back more than you're feeling it in your quads or your hamstrings or your glutes or the areas that you should feel it from, then there's no reason why you can't use this for short periods of time, intra-set, and that'll just give you a little bit of relief from those wicked back pumps, and mean that when you go back to squat, everything feels more comfortable again.